And welcome back, everyone. If you're joining us late here, a bombshell of an allegation, at least, coming in the Bridgegate scandal, where you have the direct contention here from the attorney representing David Wildstein, the Port Authority official at the center of that scandal, who says, and I want to say this correctly, that the governor knew about the lane closings when they were happening, and they have the evidence to prove it. Well, to talk more about that and other issues tonight, let's bring in our panel. And joining us again is C. Scott Vanderhoff, attorney, former Rockland County executive. Happy not to be talking about bridges tonight here, at least in his neck of the woods. Scott served 5 terms before leaving the top job in Rockland last month, now in private practice, and we're glad he's with us. And also, of course, with us, as always, is well-known political journalist and author Dominic Carter, and we're joined by Richard St. Paul, attorney and Republican strategist. Richard's the former vice chair of the National Black Republican Association. Okay, Dominic, you've covered more than a few scandals, and they tend to percolate sometimes if there's not a smoking gun, and either they fade away or they boil over. It could be as simple as nobody was paying his legal bills, this guy, and as a consequence, he got finally fed up because he took the fifth when they brought him first before the state legislature in the investigation, and he said, I'm not jumping on the sword if I have to reach my pocket to pay my own legal bills. It could be, and it's early, but it could be as simple as that, which might be the straw that broke the back of the story.
Couldn't agree with you more. Rule 101 going forward, if you're going to throw your high school friend under the bus publicly and attack him and denounce him, then privately at least try to make sure that the Port Authority pays his legal bills so he doesn't have any ambition to have you join him under the bus. The bottom line here, the bottom line, and I said this, I know it's different circumstances, but when we had the situation with Governor Elliott Spitzer, he was working the phones behind the scenes for journalists to support him. I said, Governor, you're not gonna make it, it's over. If this assertion is correct, I don't think the governor may be able to finish his term.
Well, Scott, it's interesting because every administration is different, but the smell test for a lot of folks was, it would be impossible to have a very close aide who literally, he nurtured her, I'm talking about Bridget Kelly, from really a lower level on a campaign side to a prominent role within his office. For her to be able to go rogue, as I said to my previous guest, and to shut down lanes in the GWB and funnel them into Fort Lee for 4 days, become a big story at the time, fade away for 3 months, and he only learned about this through media reports months later. It just never seemed to pass the smell test. And David Wildstein, who at one point he claimed to not know, he knew him from high school. He helped accelerate his appointment to the Port Authority. I'm not going to presume to know how this all turns out and what there is or isn't of evidence, but it just seemed difficult that such a decision could be made without more people being within the food chain of any administration, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And he spent 2 hours telling us that he didn't know because it didn't get up the food chain to him. You have to suspend a certain amount of belief, but you got to ratchet back this new news, I think, a little bit. Motivation. He wants to get paid for the legal bills, which are substantial in front of federal, state authorities. He's got that. So he's issued this statement, which has all sorts of nuances. As an executive, it could very well be that the governor was there, he's on his way out the door, someone says, we got real traffic lane problems in the George Washington Bridge, and that's all. And it may be as simple as a quick note, don't go that direction. Now, there may be an email that says, don't drive that way. So we don't know really whether this is a question of his knowing the lanes prior to, or knowing the lanes were closed for any particular reason.
Maybe this wasn't thought through. The attorney, though, that was the attorney that Wildstein retained has a track record of cutting deals with other clients to either avoid full prosecution, sentencing, or whatever else, and they'll flip on other people. And God knows there's enough corruption probes in New Jersey that the attorney's got a nice book of business. That all said, if his intention was to get his client's legal bills paid, that's off the table now. The Christie administration can't work to try and get his legal bills paid because at this point it's going to look like he's paying hush money.
Not necessarily. See, here, let's taking it from a legal perspective. Scott and I are both attorneys. When an employee does something and within the scope of their employment, then they should be covered by their employer. And so basically, what's happening is the lawyer is saying, basically, in a very abstract way, he was told to do this, or his higher-ups knew he was doing this, therefore he did it inside the scope of his employment,
if his
and
motivation
he should be covered.
if his motivation is somebody should pay my legal bills, not me or not my client, how's he going to get, in effect, the governor to get the Port Authority to pay it now that he's gone public, that he has evidence to prove here the governor knows?
It's exactly right, because he wants to show that he was operating under instructions from the highest order, and therefore he's covered under the liability issue that he shouldn't have to pay. And he may be playing a little bit for the ultimate immunity, but I think even there he has an opportunity here, because if they pay his legal bills, he's basically saying, I'm going to be found innocent. It wasn't my call.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's the question, and none of us know. There's a possibility there's already an immunity deal on the table that he's even accepted as to where to go forward. Two questions. First is, if he's trying to get coverage on this, by saying publicly that he has in his possession, and I'm extrapolating a little bit from this, but that he has the evidence to prove that the governor knew, can he be compelled to testify at this point as a material witness in an investigation?
If the investigation is about
right?
if the investigation is going towards the governor, if they open up an investigation into the governor's action, which they haven't at this point in time, so there is no. Well, we don't
None
know.
of the
We don't know if there's a
investigative-
secret grand jury looking into the governor's action at this point in time, which you could be, then subpoenaed to go there and testify. But again, his testimony would be with some type of deal of immunity. But we don't know what's happening, because they can always have, the feds can always have secret grand juries. So we don't know. But again, I would take that with a grain of salt. That was said earlier. We don't know what that means in terms of evidence exists that the governor knew about it. It could have been anything. So, we need more details.
Fair enough. But my question, Dominic, is we also know what always happens in investigations. There becomes a race to who gets the deal, right? If I'm Bridget Kelly right now and I'm sitting at home and I see David Wildstein at least making, I was going to say furtive movements, that's another topic, right? But if I was making statements saying, hey, the old boss here, yeah, the one who not only rolled over me, but backed over twice in that 2-hour press conference, you know what? He knew, and I have information that may shed some light at exactly what he did or didn't know at the time. Why would she remain quiet right now? Why wouldn't she try and get herself a good deal if she thinks somebody else might get it before her?
Well, one thing that the two lawyers said that I agree with wholeheartedly, Richard, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what the feds are saying to each of these two. We don't know if the feds,
Hadn't
normally
put the letter out.
Right. We don't know if the feds are setting up a 1-2 punch against the governor. So if you have two former top aides that you threw under the bus, and both of them say you're lying, that you knew about it, the governor's done, and that's a 1-2 punch, and I can see the feds giving immunity to both of them.
Scott, as an elected official, the one thing, we've seen a lot of people, electeds, recover from scandals, whether they be self-inflicted or, failures of morality, whatever the case may be. But Christie made it absolutely clear in that nearly 2-hour press conference that he didn't know, and that he characterized anyone who did know as worse than stupid, duplicitous, and everything else. The one thing I said was I thought it was a masterful performance, but he did draw a line which said people deserve to be fired if they were involved in this or knew about it in any way, shape, or form. If at all, even tangentially, it shows that he knew what was going on, that's not recoverable unless I'm misreading it, right?
Well, not from him, because
Right.
That's right.
because he's aggressive at being honest and straightforward. That's what he's known for. It's that public persona that gives him this credibility as a presidential candidate. If he is out there for 2 hours and is lying, his legs are cut out from under him, because he literally has lost the very personality, the very upfront kind of thing that people are looking for.
I think that's key. We saw Bill Clinton tell a lie to the nation. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And then come on TV later and say, in fact, I did have sexual relations with Ms. Lewinsky, lying under oath to a court of law. His license was suspended, but he was able to bounce back from that. But again, for Christie, it goes right to the heart of his personality in terms of being an honest and straight
Authentic,
shooter.
right?
An
That's
authentic,
the
a straight
whole thing.
shooter. He's
Yeah.
a straight shooter. And that would really hurt his brand. If he did
This
lie.
much we do know. This is not going to play out in the next 12 to 24 hours. This thing is going to drag on for a while. This is going to go through the courts. A lot of people have a very individual interest in this to see how this plays out. So we, of course, will be talking about this on Monday and have a feeling in the weeks and months to come. Okay. When we come back, we're going to get to some of the issues that we originally thought were going to be near the top of the show, and a big issue that came up in the State of the Union and will play out, I believe, on elections nationwide here in this midterm season, and that is immigration. Is immigration reform really possible? Well, tonight we asked the question. And also, does the Republicans' idea of kind of two different levels of who is and isn't legal, does that play as well? We're going to talk about that after this.